Welcome, bienvenue, and welcome back to the Modding of Isaac with Lyte. And so there's a lot of new callbacks and a couple of new classes. There's just a lot of new stuff in the most recent update. So I'm going to work on working through it. I'm not sure how many episodes I can make at a time because I need to test a lot of the things that go into these different callbacks that are not necessarily as well documented as they could be, but they at least give you the basics to be able to poke around and see what they do. And given the other callbacks we've had, we can make certain assumptions about them and try to work from there. So let's start off, why not, with Meggie? So here we are in the basement, and, well, I would like to summon a thing. Which thing are we going to summon? A boggart! What's a boggart look like? Well, it could be anything, really. So whenever we summon a boggart, it summons a random enemy of sorts. I mean, it's not any possible enemy, and sometimes, like with the Larry Jr. head, it didn't do a particularly good job of summoning it. But whenever you summon a boggart, you get something. Oh, and there we go. There are certain things that it tries to summon between, I believe it's 10 and 61 was where the majority of ordinary monsters were. Sometimes, well, it crashes the game. So this is a good warning to you that whenever you want a random monster, make sure you make a list of monsters and pull from only the types you want. Because just pulling from an entire list of numbers, it's a bit dangerous. Now, say we wanted to spawn a fly. Now, it's kind of annoying as to which flies are where, but I believe it's 13.0 fly. Not 12.0, 13.0 fly. Regular old harmless fly. Causes no trouble at all. But then you kill it, and it becomes an attack fly. And so every fly that we summon turns into an attack fly when it dies. Nice. Now, we're going to spawn Monstro, which I believe is 20.0. Regular Monstro. Now listen, not to the people mowing at 9 o'clock at night, but to what Monstro does when he arrives. That's right. Gurgly farting noise. So we now have the ability to do things when monsters are initialized, when they die, and when they are summoned in the first place. There is also a post-render callback, which I didn't demonstrate, but it's very similar to on update, except it happens twice as often. So we're going to pause the game, and we're going to head over and take a look at some callbacks. Now, we're going to need to zoom in so you can see these well enough. So, we've got the same old up top, regular old callbacks. We got the new set here, level generator, still not active. Come on, guys. We got these last time. We got execute command. But starting here with MC pre-use item, it's a bit different. I'm very sorry for my neighbor mowing at 9. They started mowing at 7. And then they stopped. And now they're doing it again. So starting here with pre-use item, you can determine whether or not somebody can actually use an item, and this can hook into the use of a vanilla item. So here's MC use item for your modded item needs. But down here with the pre-item, that should, I haven't tested it yet, help you with the vanilla items and preventing certain items from being used under certain curse type situations. But what we have used in this episode are MC pre-entity spawn for the boggart, NPC init, and NPC death. Now there are tons more. We've got familiars being rendered or colliding. We've got players updating and rendering, and colliding. These collision ones are really nice, because then you can choose whether or not your player does in fact collide with things and react to the collision. We've got pickups, such that we can work with when our pickups are dropped and updated and rendered and selected and collided. It's so nice. So you can implement an additional coin type that could theoretically replace a dime on random occasion. You get a sticky dime, or exploding dime, or a fleeing dime. Goodness knows what you could do with this one, or this one right here. We've got tiers. We've got projectiles, lasers, knives, effects, bombs. When you fire a tier, it gives you the tier. All you people that have been wondering, oh, but how about when I want to get a tier I just fired? Well, here it is. After you fire a tier, you can get the tier and do anything you want with it. Getting collectibles, getting pills, trinkets when entities are killed or removed. So even if it isn't an NPC, you can get it when it dies or goes away. So tons of fun new callbacks. I just demonstrated the very basic ones with NPCs. So let's take a look at the code, see how I did the magic that we did. So in the XML, the boggart does not even have an anim2. He's invisible. No one knows what a boggart really looks like. All he has is a name and an ID number and a couple of stats that aren't even necessary because, well, he's never going to exist. Because the moment you try to spawn him, it spawns something else. Between 10, well, in this case, 11, and 61. So, as per usual, boilerplate up here saying that we have a mod. We get the entity type by name for our boggart, like we have all of our other entities. And then we add our callback, pre-entity spawn, on spawn. Now, I wasn't able to get the filter working. There might be a way of sending it a table with the type variant and subtype. There might be a way of putting in 3 filters for the types variant and subtype, but just putting in the type did not work. It was not able to filter out by boggart by putting this down here. So instead, we get inside of this onSpawn event, and then we check if the type, that's this first entry, is of type boggart. And we get all the rest of the information on what the thing is and where it's being spawned and everything. And then we decide, is that really what we want? And if it isn't, we give it a type, a variant, a subtype, and a seed. Now, since I'm doing something random, I just did the first little bit of a thing. But if you wanted to sneak in your own variants of things, you could have a random variant here. So say you made a different type of Horf. Every time it summons a Horf, you could tell it, on a random chance, make it a fancy Horf. Or make it not a Horf at all. So if you wanted to get rid of a type of enemy, every time you see it, poof, it's something else. So that's pre-entity spawn. Happens before it's spawned, you return a table saying what you want it to be. Next up, post-NPC death. Our poor little fly has died. So we call fly death. On fly death, it gives us the fly that died. And then we spawn an attack fly where that fly died. This code could be anything. You can do anything when the fly dies. You could add an explosion, a fart, summon Ragman. Could teleport you to the next room over. Could send you to the cathedral. There are all sorts of things you can have happen here whenever a particular type of entity dies. Or you could keep track of a counter for unlocking purposes. Oh, you've killed 75 of my fancy new entities. You get a new something. That's all the sorts of things that you can do in this death trigger. And then init trigger is the opposite of a death trigger. When it first comes into existence, in our case, Monstro, it makes a fart gurg sound effect. That's all it does. Makes a sound. Doesn't have to be fancy. But it does run once when the NPC comes into existence. We had that for familiars, we had that for players, but we didn't have it for NPCs. Now we do. That's basically what they did with all these callbacks, was all those things that we had to jerry-rig ourselves, they're making official for us. So you can do it when it comes into existence, when it dies, when it updates, before it spawned, all those sorts of things. Now, one little bit of a word to the wise. On init, I wanted to do something with the fly. When it came into existence, something was nearby. Well, the position was not set properly on init when summoning from the console. Now, I'm not certain if the position is appropriate for when it's summoned by the room, but at the very least, it is not correct when it's initialized by the console. The position is 0, in those cases. So further testing is necessary to see the little quirks with each of these callbacks and when they happen and what information you have and don't. So if you ever try to do something with one of these and it's not doing quite what you expect, make sure that you check the values that you're being given for the NPC or for the bomb or the laser or whatnot. Because there's a chance these happen before what you expect to be the truth is in fact truth. But that's just a nice quick introduction to a couple of these new callbacks. Feel free to go through the documentation yourself, because it is all here for what it's called and what it will give you. It will also tell you what to return. For example, pre-entity spawn said to return the type, variant, subtype, and seed. So if it doesn't tell you what to return, it probably doesn't accept anything. And then most of it is labeled in a way that it should make sense. So if you want to do fancy things with bombs, they're all right here. Go in there, poke around, see what you can make it do. But I will work through each of these, try to do something interesting with all of them, such that you can see what's possible. There are other things that I would like to look into, but just haven't had the chance. For example, down here in classes, there is the font class, which should be a lot of fun. There's the weird variations between K color and color. There's Q item data, which I'm not certain what it's for. But there's a lot of things that have been added here and there that I would like to go through and just make sure I know what they all do. Here in Isaac, we have find in radius and find by type, which should be really helpful for getting away from just looping over all the entities in the room. And we also have screen to world and world to screen, which should help with rendering. So when in doubt, just take a little time, walk through the documentation just to see what things are new and make sure you know where things are. But that's all I've got for this episode, mostly because of the mowing next door. And I will see you in the next episode of The Modding of Isaac with Lyte.